evening, members. We have Chandan today, who is going to take a 2 hour from the SOC1, SOC2 Reporting. What it is, I know the little bit about the SOC2 and SOC1, but we will take through the complete detail. So over to you, Chandan. Chandan is very much familiar. There is a 2-year, he was the president of this SOC2 project. So let's have the lecture.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
First, a question regarding what makes you listen to SOC2. What makes you listen to SOC1 to Service Organizational Controls Audit? So, have you any familiarity? Have you seen it somewhere, or is it like have you heard about it? What's that makes you bring to the session?
Yeah, we do it to interest. We ask for these SOC2 reports. We have a perception that they have the security control that they are saying are implemented or actually implemented.
Okay. Good.
So what I came to know is just I'm working for Wipro presently. Got into a new project which is based for a US client. So from them I got to know that we have to be as an Wipro providing service to that client of US. So the SOC1 and SOC2 they have to be compliant for that.
Right.
There are few controls which are segregated in this for trust principles, confidentiality, integrity, availability,
privacy,
and privacy, security, all these things, and few controls which are relevant to ISO 27000 as well.
There's a lot of crisscross between ISO and
out there.
yeah.
And this I got a good opportunity there from Visa because this is new for me.
Okay.
Just joined in that project. So
Okay.
A good opportunity to learn from you.
Okay. Jay. Your? Yeah. Prashant, sorry. Okay. Okay. Now, basically, SOC is a to understand in a layman's language that if you have outsourced some part of your IT process to another organization, so what you look into? You will look into your information security, whether there's availability of your data and or information, or there is availability of your systems, and do they have any specific processes to secure your information. Then you will always want to have a confidentiality of your data. Fourth is your processing integrity, whether it is being processed in the way it should be processed. And last is if there is a regulatory requirement regarding privacy, then is the personal data of customers is protected. That's what the basic premises of SOC comes around. So in a layman's language is like I've given you something, you have to process this part of my information, or you have to develop some kind of software, or you are implementing a SaaS model, or sometimes in a BPO company you outsource certain processes. That's where the SOC comes into picture, because I've outsourced some part of my processes. So I want to ensure that the same kind of a security and other criteria are being followed by your organization. So SaaS is something, SOC is something, it has a history. Now it started somewhere in 1992. It was as old as 1992. It was first introduced as a SAS 70. Now this reporting this is a standard, auditing standard, which has been followed, which has been issued by the AICPA, which is the CPA Institute of USA. So it is as old as the 1992. Then there were a couple of revisions and everything, but ultimately it changed in 2010. It transformed into SSAE 16, and with it was in line with the international ISAE 3402 reporting requirements for things which are outsourced, or part which is outsourced by the organization. So that's where it was mapped with the SSAE 16. And third is the newer one, which is the latest one, which is the SSAE 18, which was issued in 2017, and all reporting entities, all the reports issued after 15 December 2018 have to be in line with SSAE 18. So there the main part which has been included is the sub-service organizational controls. Okay. Now, what brings SAS 70 into picture? Earlier, around 2002, when SOX came in, there was this requirement of internal financials over reporting, internal financial controls over financial reporting. Now, up to then, SAS 70 was not much followed or not looked into. But then the auditor started questioning that you have outsourced certain financial processes of your organization. How will you ensure that the information security or the information which is being processed is properly processed by the outsourced vendor? Now, around that period, there was a huge budget of outsourcing of financial processes like payrolls, then AP, AR, general ledgers, financial reporting. There were a lot of MIS reports being prepared in India. So that's where the auditor started questioning, how do you ensure that your information is safe? And that's when people started asking for SAS 70. In that period, a lot of especially the big fours used to pitch for, were the only ones who knew what SAS 70 was in India, and they used to issue these reports. So basically, SAS 70 is more from a financial perspective, rather only from a financial perspective. If you have outsourced the financial processing, then only SAS 70 would come into picture. Then subsequently, it was aligned to 3402 of ISAE 18, and it became SSAE 16. Now, what is the basic difference between SSAE 16 and SAS 70 that we will see in the next slide? This is okay. And these were the TSC, that is trust service criteria, which were applied in SOC reports. That is the security, availability, confidentiality, processing integrity, and privacy. These were now included in the criteria. Now, what is the basic difference between SOC 1, SOC 2, SOC 3? Now, SOC 1 was basically the old SAS 70. Okay. Now, how it happened is that reporting requirements, reporting of controls over financial reporting. Okay. Now, take an example of payroll processor. Now, how a payroll processor would do a payroll processing. Okay, he would ask for some information. He will have a lot of employee information. He will have all the employee database. He will have all the payroll related calculations. He will have all the basic salary, which is the most critical part. He will have all the breakup of the salary. He will know what employee, what kind of a salary he draws. He will have information regarding his date of birth. So he basically has all the information from the outsourced vendor. So from the customer. So how will he protect that information? Okay. So most of the companies who were required to, who were doing the financial processing, they were asked to issue this SOC 1, were asked to attest the SOC 1 report and report on the same. Now, how will things move in this case? Now, in case of a payroll processor, there will be a certain process. Like there are some basic, first is you need to have a proper segregation of duties. You need to have logical access controls. You need to have privacy related and confidentiality related stuff. Okay. Now take an example that how it would start is, most of the companies who were required to comply with SOC 1 or SAS 70, they implemented ISO 27000 in the first place. Now what ISO 27000 does is, it documents all the policies, it documents all the procedures, and the company employees have to follow the same policies and procedures to protect the information. So that's how it got started for SOC 1 reporting. Then I mean, any given reporting, the basic foundation is your policies and procedures which have to be adhered to. So that was the basis for SOC 1 reporting. Secondly, there are certain processes to be followed. When I say processes, like how do you access data, how do you create employees, how do you segregate the information. Like in case of payroll processing, there is a thumb rule. The thumb rule is that the person who can add or modify or delete or deactivate an employee in the masters should not do the ultimate processing of payroll. This is a thumb rule in any given payroll processing company. any organization. So this thumb rule, whether this has been followed by the outsourced vendor, and then how do you transmit the information? Because in payroll there is a chance that some data might be manipulated, or whether they can change the pay range, or they can also manipulate the bank accounts also if those are available. So there are a lot of risks associated with the payroll processes. So how does an outsourced payroll vendor mitigates this risk? Basically, is the premise of the SOC 1 reporting, and whether the information which has been provided and has been correctly processed is the basic premise of the SOC 1. Second part, now this came into picture in 2010, which is the SOC 2, which is the basic idea is the basic premise of this session. Now in case of SOC 2, earlier it only talked about, SAS 70 talked only about financial reporting. But there are a lot of other processes which are being outsourced. Like you outsource your QA, you might outsource some of your data entry stuff, you might outsource some of your processes to any other organization which might not be related to financial processes. Nowadays, a lot of companies are hosting SaaS, are using the SaaS model and hosting things on cloud. So, how do you ensure in that case that your information is safe, or whether the outsourced person is using correct controls to mitigate the risks, which if is I will say in our arm's length case. Okay, suppose if this is my information, the way I want to protect it or secure it, whether the outsourced vendor is also following the same process. That's what the premise of SOC 2 is. So they issue there was SOC 2 had 5 trust principles. First is the security. How is your security of your data being ensured? Second is how are you ensuring the availability of your data? Third is the processing integrity. Fourth is the confidentiality, and fifth is the privacy piece. And apart from this, there was SOC 3. We will go into detail in the next slide. Apart from this, there was a SOC 3 reporting. Now, if Amazon, take a company like Amazon, which is into AWS, is the cloud premises. Now, everybody cannot go and ask, what, I want your SOC 2 report, I want your reporting for SOC. So, what will Amazon do? They will have one SOC 3 report, okay, which is a very generalized report of 8 to 10 pages. It will not give the description of the whole reporting, and it will just provide you that this is the company, we have audited it, the auditor's seal, and also the management's assertion on the of the system. And only in certain cases, or in if there is a agreement between AWS and the other organization, they will issue the whole report, or else they are not obliged to issue the whole report to anyone. Now SOC 1 is specific to any client only. Okay, suppose you have been outsourced by a company called ABC from the US, and they want this report, then only the controls related to that company can be tested and they can be given to them. Okay, in case of SOC 2, it's up to the client whom they want to share it, obviously. Now SOC 2 reports can run into, like, a company has, say, 5 different departments, or 5 different, say, in case of a BPO company, they might have 5 different segments. So these can be issued for one specific segment. It can be issued for all the segments, or they might pick and choose even in one segment for one client only, they can choose it. So that's the level of reporting you can have in SOC 2.
So which type of data we talks about the SOC 2 reporting? Only the financial data, or the HR data, or the IT data? Which type of data?
It's not about data. It talks about the overall information security environment first.
The processes that you typically follow.
The processes you follow for
various systems, and what are the process around it you have been put as controls.
Okay. So basically, if you see the 2017 trust criteria, they have given. I'll show you that slide further, which is here. This is what is given. Okay. So this is the basic premise of Okay, this is the basic trust service criteria. I also have a file wherein they have listed all the trust service criteria. Huh?
Can you show it?
रुको ना, अभी सस्पेंस है. So अभी है. Okay, so it does not specifically talk of about any data. Okay, it's up to you how you scope it. Okay, sometimes the client has a scoping that I want specific processes to be covered, then we will cover only the specific process. Sometimes there is a requirement that okay, for this specific process, this specific client only the controls are required. There has been a case wherein we audited a company which was an outsourcing company, and we asked them what is the client requirement. They said there is no client requirement. Why do we want to do a SOC2 reporting? No, we want to do it, that's it. So this was a BPO company. They selected a specific process, asked us to basically help in preparing the attestation and preparing the report and auditing everything. And then when we completed the audit, we asked the client, actually we are curious to know what is the requirement. He said, you know what, MD is traveling to US next month and he wants to present this report to clients so that we get a good work. It would be a good marketing tool for us. So there have been couple of cases wherein we have audited the clients even when there was no requirement from their customers, because people are able to understand its utility and use it as a marketing tool in their organization. So that's how I mean, this can be also adopted by a lot of clients. And we have received a lot of queries that you know, there's no client requirement but we want it. So this kind of things are also there. SOC3 is a generalized report and it's up to the company whether they want to share it. There's no obligation on them to share it in the public, because when you read a SOC2 or a SOC2 report, it runs into pages, it describes all the systems, all the networks you have. So it's a quite a confidential information which is being prepared, being thrown into SOC2 reports. So companies usually don't share the SOC2 reports unless and until there's a client specific requirements. Also,
some companies put their SOC2 report under their websites.
There is a SOC3. That is a SOC3.
there's a SOC3 report.
That is a SOC3.
No, I have seen SOC2.
Can you send me those reports? Because I have not seen SOC2 reports on the websites.
During vendor assessment, we found that they said that we can download directly from the website.
I think they must have put it on the internet portal for public.
How can we access from our company?
Okay, that's strange. Because it's normally a very confidential report, and you report, lot of the systems are reported in this. Lot of confidential information is being shared because you share all your network information, organization charts, you share a lot of your processes, you share your VABT things, you share your risk assessment. So उसको वहीं पे गाड़ देना. You can hit him there. ये तो confidential information. How can you ask you to share it? So in SOC 1 and 2 there are two types of reports. Even in this, and there's a type 1 report and there's a type 2 report. Now how will a type 1 report do? Type 1 report is like a test of design. Okay. There are a lot of, when do we issue a type 1 report? We did it for a Nigerian company recently. Now this company was into SaaS model, using a SaaS model, and they wanted, the customer had a requirement that, you know, we want a SOC 2 report, but he said I want to go for a type 1 report. The basic idea was that he didn't have any policies and procedures in place, and he first wanted to ensure that the policies are there and the security policy is there, and then we can test for the design. Now what is, as auditors, you have test of design, that is you take one sample and you do all the walkthrough and everything. So in SOC 1, you basically report only the test of design. You know, this is the system, this is the control. You do not test them, or you do not ensure that, I would say, not the full-fledged audit is there. You only test one control, whether this has been applied or not. So you basically report what kind of controls are being exercised in the organization. So that's what the idea of test of designs is. Now type 1 report, basically the service, I will say not the service organization, but the main vendor or your main customer will not, auditors will not rely on type 1 report. Type 1 report is not relied by the auditors. They will have a look at it, but they will not rely on it because you have not tested the full-fledged implementation of those controls. You've just tested whether these controls are in existence or no. That's it. So type 1 report is not relied by the auditors. Only the type 2, which is the test of effectiveness, wherein you go on the ground and test all the reports, all your samples, whether the processes have been implemented, that is relied by the auditor. That's why the type 2 audit report is more relied by the auditors, is only relied by the auditors, not the type 1. Okay, SOC2 basically has 5 trust criteria. First is the security, okay. Second is the availability, third is the processing integrity, then confidentiality and privacy. Now any given case, any given client, we have to scope the audit first. Now how do you scope it? You first go meet the client, understand what are the processes they want to get the audit done, and what would be applicable to them. Commonly, the security is applicable to all the clients. Second, the availability is also applicable to all the clients. Third is the confidentiality piece, which is always applicable. Okay, but there's a question mark whether the processing integrity and privacy would be applicable in that case. Okay, so the biggest piece is the privacy piece. We all are aware of the GDPR implications and what kind of a privacy related compliances we have to do. But privacy has a huge the requirements, biggest requirements are the privacy, and privacy is applicable when you process the personal data, PI, personally identifiable information of the customers. Then the privacy piece would also come into picture.
One question: can the client choose which of the areas they want the SOC2 type to report on?
No. Area means in 5?
Yeah, they say I want the SOC2 type to only for security. Can you do that?
No.
They can't.
They can't.
One of the things, like out of these 5 PSCs, can I elect 4?
No, you cannot elect. It has to be a proper assessment.
So scoping, if I exclude privacy,
That can be done if it is not applicable. Okay, now
how do I say that it is applicable or not applicable?
Okay, now let me give an example. A company doing a quality assurance processes, they have requested for a SOC2 audit report. Okay, the client provides them what kind of data would be used for quality assurance, QA purpose, and what kind of output they want. Okay, so it's up to the client to provide all the information. Okay, so in that case, you do not have any personal information of the customers, of his customers. Okay, so why would privacy come into picture?
Because I encountered recently one particular case in a cloud service provider who is providing services to several federal agencies as well in US, who is one of our cloud service providers for our US companies or US counterpart. In their report, they excluded privacy, stating that we don't store any private information. But we asked them, how do you say that? Because anyways, this particular software which you are hosting on your cloud is all about recruitment services, which stores the private information.
Yes.
But their counter to that could be that they are only providing the services of cloud. They are not managing the data.
Exactly, that's what he claimed.
Their responsibility therefore ends with provisioning of the resources.
Correct.
How you manage it as a customer, then the privacy becomes the customer's responsibility, not the provider.
Yeah, so the privacy becomes the
Customer who's using it to store the data.
correct using or the services being available. Let's say
Yeah.
recruitment software we are taking. Now that privacy becomes
Customer's responsibility, not their responsibility.
correct. That
So-
vendor's responsibility.
Yeah. So they are only storing the information. In that case, if they do not have access to that data, or they are not responsible for that data, then the privacy piece won't be applicable in that case. Okay. Privacy is the most critical piece while scoping. One case we encountered wherein we were doing for a audit of a BPO company. Now they were into healthcare processing, and they said, we do not store any information like a typical Indian organization. You know what? Client has given us the virtual access, secured access, VPN access, and we log into their systems. There we do all the processing. People are not allowed to write anything. We cannot store data on Excel, Word file. Everything was fine. Looked all beautiful. Then suddenly they showed us something which actually changed the whole scenario. They said, you know what? We record the calls. So why do you record it? Well, because there are sometimes disputes with the client that that the customer agent has responded in certain way, or they has not handled the matter properly. That's why we record the call. So where do you store it? On our systems. So whole privacy picture thing came into the picture. Now ultimately, how do you scope it in that case? Now the service organization, the BPO company didn't have any access to the customers. Okay, so who is providing this data is the client. So who is the face of the customer is your client. So what will you do in that case? Because you need a consent, because this is a medical data, this is not a normal BPO company, this is a health insurance related things and coordination. They are doing all these things. So HIPAA comes into picture, high trust comes into picture. So what will you do in that case? Because you do not have access to the customers, you cannot go and ask customers, I'm using your private information. We asked the next question, how many days do you have this recording? They said 90 days. That's a very big time. So ultimately what we concluded was, since you do not have a privacy so we carved out that control to the customers, because it's customers' responsibility to get the consent of their customers that your private information can be processed in such and such a way. So that's how we scoped out this thing, and the privacy piece was taken out. Now processing integrity is another part which is a very, I will say,
So in this case, the BPO company which is storing those information as a video or records, so they took a consent from the client.
no,
That company,
they have to have an agreement with the client. Privacy is your domain. You have access to your customers, and if you have access to your customers, you need to take their consent for using the private information.